Let's go to Mike Scheper now. Shep, thanks for sitting through that. Minot State University Beavers defensive coordinator. How are you, Shep?
Doing great, Rod. Thanks so much for having me on.
Any thoughts on that, glitzing up the CFL draft, or do you have as much concern anymore since you're all NCAA now?
I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, Rod. You handled it beautifully.
Thank you so much, Shep. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of the Beavers talk and all the rest, life amid the pandemic for you, what's life like on a daily basis, and how's your family?
Family's great, Rod. Thanks for asking. Currently, they're still stationed in Regina. I'm currently deployed, in air quotes, if you will, here in Minot. The good and bad that comes with that, obviously, been able to stay business as usual for us as a coaching staff. You notice we're here live from my office with some drawings in the background. So we've been able to stay busy, stay purposeful with what we need to do and accomplish as a staff, and also have a little bit of leeway that allows us without having a actual spring ball and actual upcoming May recruiting period. It's allowed us to get our concrete poured to the basement here as both a defensive staff and also with our defensive players. We have performed virtual spring practice via Zoom and Microsoft Elements online technology, which I'm continually learning by the day, but it's been fun. Our players have done a great job adapting this never before seen or lived situation, and we're just busy making lemonade out of the lemons.
I got to get one of those jackets. I got to get down to the Magic City as soon as the border opens, and because I'm the biggest Minot State Beavers fan now, and it's so awesome that you're saying this is what you're doing, because you get a lot of people sitting at home whining and saying, "Why me?" And then you got the Minot State Beavers program saying, "Try me." And you're finding all new ways to do it. So can you talk about the association as to how you came to be with the Beavers, the defensive coordinator? Was there a connection there before?
No, ultimately, and I don't mean to sound trite whatsoever in saying this. I have zero trite or zero fluffiness when I say this. Very much from a faith-based perspective, this was a God-opened door. And when I say that, I didn't have a prior direct connection with any member, starting with the head coach, Mike Aldrich, or any of these fellow staff members on this staff that I'm now working with. And so that opened a door for me where really there was no other door open or available even at that time. And so in a supportive role or a kind of a secondary, tertiary sort of way, a fellow who was a former graduate assistant here at Minot State from Saskatchewan, believe it or not, the small world that it is, was able to, in the aftermath of Coach Aldrich and I, first of all, me finding out about an opening just online randomly on Super Bowl Sunday, to where he and I began conversation. This fellow who was a graduate assistant formerly, his name's Colton Ethier, a proud Saskatchewan native, was able to at least draw further connecting of the dots in that he and I are a mutual to Coach Aldrich and myself, but that not on the front end of things. That was after the ball got rolling. So very much thankful. And from a faith perspective, this was, like I said, this was a God thing.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, your connection to Chris Jones, and we'll get to that. But first, tell our viewers, because they all know who you are. You've been in the CFL a long time, and you married a Regina girl. And your kids were born here or close-ish, right? You played in the NCAA, and you've coached in the NCAA before. Can you talk about your history in college ball?
Sure. Got my start in the NCAA as a graduate assistant at Fresno State University. This was in the prior decade when Pat Hill was still the head coach there. Pat had a 15-year run at Fresno State, very successful in the giant killer, if you will, with air quotes, as far as knocking off a multitude of Power 5 teams, being in what they call currently Group of Five as a program, and was highly influential on my young coaching career at the time. I still count him as one of my Mount Rushmores, if you will, as far as who I look at with a real reverence and an esteem for teaching me the correct path. And then after Fresno, my first run with the Roughriders in 2009 and 10, had another opportunity in the NCAA in the Pacific Northwest at Portland State University. And it was another lens to be able to view it from, in that case, from the FCS or the traditional 1AA level. So it's been good. I'm currently now at the Division II level, so I've been able to span different teams, different geography, and different levels, which has really affected me positively.
But you're going to have to forgive me. As a player, would you believe this guy was a lineman? What did you tip the Toledo's at, Shep? Look at him. Nobody would believe it to look at him now. But talk about your playing days.
I'm going to talk about the playing days while I multitask by pulling up the photograph and flip the picture here on my phone if I can get this thing dialed up. I always have it at the ready for a case like this. So just a natural, organic conversation. Let's put it this way. There was a 3 as my first digit on the scale, if you can that. And so, Rod, as you giggle with me here, the natural reply that I always come back with is, well, let's relax. I did stretch it on a 5'10" frame.
Oh, exactly. He's not even a tall guy. That's the wild thing. And so, did you find it?
I'm going to attempt this here, so bear with me. I'm going to attempt a screenshot here, and I'm going to get this thing right up close.
Whoa. Which one are you?
The fellow with the white shirt and the opposite haircut of this chia pet that I'm rocking in a quarantine right now.
Shaved head.
Right there. That shaved head. That right there is a face only a mother could love.
No kidding. Well, I know a lot that do love it.
Lovely has more than reminded me. Had we met during that time period, I love you, Shep, but I would have kept walking.
Exactly. By the way, our director of scouting, Craig Smith's watching. He says, Shep, were you at Fresno State when Coach Nussmeier was there?
Yes. Coach Nussmeier was our offensive coordinator when I was a graduate assistant. So yes.
Doug Nussmeier, is he still with the Cowboys? What is he? Is he quarterbacks coach there? What is Nussmeier doing with the Cowboys?
I haven't up with recently enough with the last set of the coaching carousel and changes and cycle. I want to say so, but I'm not certain of that.
Moving on to, as I mentioned, you were top lieutenant in the Chris Jones Army for a long time, but you were in the CFL before you hooked up with Jones. So what was that association made, and why did it stay so strong?
So I'm blessed to have a real nice dichotomy or a symmetry between two defensive coordinators that I owe a tremendous amount of respect and, again, honor and reverence to for teaching me and setting the course for my path as I'm now becoming a defensive coordinator for the first time. So originally, like you touched on, prior to working with Chris, I was with Gary Echeverry, who really gave me my start in the Canadian Football League all those years ago in 2009. And so in one regard, a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for just that opportunity in the first place, which as a byproduct allowed me to meet my wife, Minot. And here we are with our family and our 2 children and day to day. And then coupled with Chris Jones. And so in a similar fashion, a little bit to what I touched on with how I was able to acquire this position at Minot State, had not worked with Chris previously, but as I've thanked him more than a time or two since then, it was 5 years ago when he took a flyer on me. He was going into his second year with Edmonton, and I had just finished my time with Winnipeg at that time. And so he took a flyer on me. We had not worked together previously. In similar case, I had not worked with that staff at that point in time. And so I owe a tremendous amount of thanks to that in and of itself.
Last one here. Well, 2. Smitty writes in, and you know Craig Smith. He says, Nuss is quarterback's coach with the Cowboys. And I only know that because that's my team, but he said coach tight ends there last year. And our social media advisor, Tyler Dacu, says, all right, let's hear Shep's weight loss plan. They want to know how you did it, Shep.
You're not going to find it on Google. You're not going to find it on YouTube. Intense, yes, which I think makes up my general personality traits, so I've been told. Necessarily recommending this. I'm just going to let you know what worked for me. So I first lost about 30 pounds right off the top, really with no effort, because like I said, I mean, I'm under 6 feet tall and I was carrying a tremendous amount of weight. And so naturally, after getting done with my final season, chilling out, just kind of living life, 30 dropped right off the bat. So that was like, okay, that's exciting. And so then I turned my attention to, and it's going to come down to calories, output versus input, right? So I knew this, as long as I'm inputting very little amount of calories. So in this case, I was taking in about 1,200 calories total each day. So to put that per Rod, I'm sure you and I, we're probably game to knock out 1,200 calories in a sitting, probably double that if you allow us to. So 1,200 calories a day. I worked up to 2 gallons of water, believe it or not. Do that at the start. I wouldn't advise or recommend that. You're going to be needing a porta potty to take with you wherever you go. But worked up to where I was drinking a mass amount of water, eating very little. So I was feeling full throughout, and then I was hitting the cardio, treadmill, basketball, you name it, racquetball, any kind of cardio-based conditioning to just run around and burn calories. And so under 6 months later, in the end result, end up being for 100 pounds lost. So like I said, probably not going to find that in a men's health magazine. It's probably not the healthiest or most judicious way to go about it. Highly effective, though.
But it works. Just 2 comments from Brett Taylor watching in Moose Jaw. He says, what a combination of intense and positive. Shep, we'll put that on your tombstone, by the way. Intense and positive, with whatever quote you'd also want. And from Jorgen Hughes, good luck down there, Shep Doc. So the players are watching and wishing you well, which probably wouldn't surprise you at all.
Right on. Jorgen, I appreciate that. And for all the guys, players, past, present, future, the whole bit, hey, love you guys. I wish you guys tremendous success on a go-forward basis, no doubt.
Shep, thanks so much for the time. Keep in touch. Stay safe, and appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Rod. Appreciate you having me on. It was a blast.
It was. Mike Scheper, defensive coordinator of the Minot State University Beavers, and a good friend. We connected real quick way back and stayed friends, and I'm a Beavers fan now. We're going to be following them, right? Which, by the way, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit, because they're saying college sports, total different ball of wax from pros. And we'll talk about that. And Rod Black mentioned that in hour 1, too, amateur sports in Canada. We'll get to that. Justin Dunk with a wrap on the NFL draft, Canadians signing free agent deals down there, the CFL draft upcoming, lots to get to. Just want to say thanks again to Shep for the time and the friendship. And we'll be back with a sports update and more. It's the Rod Pedersen Show. Monday morning, episode 221 of Canada's morning sports talk show continues after this on Facebook Live. And listen live at rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.